I newly represent the neighborhood of Gowanus, and as I'm sure you know, there has been a great deal of consternation at DEC's involvement in the Gowanus cleanup and how that affects and implicates the future development plan for that site. I know we were supposed to have a community meeting tonight with the elected officials. I'm glad we postponed that because we're obviously all up here talking to you here and not back home. So my first question is, what is DEC doing right now to clean up in this area, especially the intermediate level of the aquifer in that region? And then secondly, do you have enough resources? Do you have enough? I mean, I feel like every time I hear from folks, it's like DEC is not responsive enough, they're not at the table, they're not getting back to us, they're not here. Do you have the resources you need to complete this job?
So the Gowanus, as you know, is one of the more complicated cleanups in the state, if not the country, given the intensity of toxicity in the soil, in the water, groundwater, and the number of properties that we're dealing with, the potential responsible parties. So we're working in concert with the EPA. The relationship is a strong one. As I mentioned earlier, I've been in direct communication with the EPA regional administrator about our need to improve communications writ large on this cleanup. We are employing both our state Superfund program, $100 million a year average, as well as our brownfields program with some of the eligible properties to fix those problems. And we're going to hold the polluters to the highest standard, period. We want the site to get back to productive reuse. We understand that there's incredible interest in that area. And ultimately, we want to make sure whatever gets there is going to be protective of human health. Sure,
I appreciate that. I'll just tell you, as a new representative in this community, the number one thing I hear from people has been, obviously it's complicated, there's multiple agencies. The lack of communication and responsiveness from DEC has been probably the single greatest thing I've heard, which then makes it harder to kind of figure out how we move forward. And so I know it's challenging. I really hope we can work on improving that and really bringing that up to the standard, because a lot of folks, that's their number one issue, is the lack of responsiveness or communication from DEC. My other question for you is, New York City is projecting a nearly 67% increase in the volume of truck traffic, mostly from overnight deliveries because they've exploded throughout the pandemic. What role does DEC have in allowing last mile warehouses to be opened? And how can we strengthen oversight over whatever process does currently exist?
Well, I'll tell you, Senator, we don't really have a role. We don't have jurisdiction on determining the last mile. It's an issue
But they do get permitting, is that correct?
Well,
don't they get permitted by DEC?
To some degree, but we aren't making judgments about we aren't allowed to make judgments about what goes in at the end of the line. If it's a water permit they need to come to us. If it's an air permit, they need to come to us. But if it's merely the creation of a facility to move large amounts of product, then we currently don't have a role.
Oh, I'd love to talk to you more about that because it's a problem in a lot of EJ communities that are bearing that burden. Thank you.